Hello, welcome to the channel. If you are new, thank you so much for being here. And I'm so happy to be here delivering this channeled message that may turn into a tarot energy reading around the new moon, or it may just end up being channeled messages for you, because just as I was getting ready to set up to come on here and connect with you all, Spirit starts working through me and giving me things to say. Because at first I was like, oh, it'll just be a reading. I haven't posted anything on YouTube in a while and I miss the community. I want to connect. And then, of course, as I'm getting ready, all these downloads start coming in. So here we are. And I just want to say thank you to all of your support and just presence when it comes to this channel. I, as an energy reader, do feel your energy, and I do feel the kindness and the integrity that tends to be cultivated here, even on a public sphere like YouTube, where there is so much negativity and there can be so much of that energy that's not really wanted. So I really, really appreciate all of you, because you're a part of that. So thank you for being here. And well, what I want to talk about today, or what Spirit wants me to talk about, I should say, is this idea of the path of the twin flames, why it's so important, and what's been coming through in terms of this moment in time, why there's so much talk about twin flames, why it feels like there's more twin flames on the planet than there ever has been, and what that's about. Now, if you go back into my history on my videos, I do have videos where I go very specifically into what are twin flames, why are they here, what's the purpose, etc. And of course, this will probably be a carry out of that energy. There'll be a continuation, if you will. But as of late, the work that I've personally been doing in my study has been all around the mystery schools, the mystery school traditions, and the ancient teachings that have been carried out, and these sectors of society that have tried to uphold the mystery schools, traditions, the actions, and the schools that are trying to move the culture forward, and then the schools that are trying to control the culture. And essentially, that's kind of where we are. That's what this whole moment in time is. Just as Yeshua seeded the path of ascension for us at this now time, the twin flames are seeding the path of freedom and sovereignty for our friends, our family, our community. That is why the role is so important. And it's funny because there are some mystery school teachings that discuss and talk about twin flames, but for the most part, they're not super present in those works. And these incredible mystics and philosophers that were fighting so hard for the freedom of society and releasing certain doctrines, releasing support, some of these mystical sciences, some of these mystical practices to try and help the culture not get lost to the harmonic sort of impulse, the scientific materialism, the quite frankly, the loss of our humanity, the loss of our connection to the divine, which does wrap us up into materialism. That's kind of the path that gets us stuck in that. And I believe I've shared a video about the more harmonic sort of archon energy and how that connects more to a distorted masculine, which is kind of the loss of your humanity. There's a disconnection from the higher chakras. There is scientific materialism. There is no God. It's that kind of bleak, man is a god and man can control all, and we can do it all through science, and we can bypass the need to ascend, bypass the need to awaken through spirit, and we can just do it ourselves. And so this is also like a path of eugenics. This is a path of just control of everything, just a need for control. Then there's also the more Luciferian path, which leads to distorted feminine impulse, not being able to control our emotions, getting sucked into darker timelines, getting sucked into the eighth sphere. If any of you are familiar with that, again, these are sort of mystery school terminologies that I don't want to go into here, but we'll be going into more in the Patreon community. But it gets us trapped in sort of the cycle of reincarnating on the earth plane, stuck in a loop where we can't break free, and tends to be kind of getting stuck into pain and depression and pleasure even, but pleasure from a distorted, dark underbelly, if that makes sense. If you have questions, you can ask, but I do have a video that I kind of talk about that a little bit more. But the twin flames and why there feels to be more of us now, and why it feels like it's an inescapable journey for those of us that are on this path, whereas maybe in past incarnations, twin flames, they either came together or they didn't. And it was, you know, they worked on it, they tried, spirit tried, everybody tried. And if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Whereas this particular collective, it's like there are no other options. Like this is the path, this is the way. And it is an ascension path that we are carving out, that, you know, Mary Magdalene and Yeshua carved out for us, as did many other powerful mystics and, you know, ascended masters that came into density, came into the third dimension, into a body, in order to lead a path forward for us to be able to walk in that path as well. And so now that is kind of what we're here doing. So for the twin flames that have awakened to this deeper inner knowledge, that are working their spiritual path and using this connection, this relationship, as information as to where they are on this path, and using it as a mirror into their own inner workings and journey to awakening, these are the twins that are freeing themselves from this harmonic path, or from this more Luciferian path. These are the twins that are actually freeing and emancipating from the material, I don't want to say material plane because we're still in bodies, but freeing ourselves from the entrapment of the material plane, freeing ourselves from, you know, having to go along with things that we don't align with, and not being in our power, not having sovereignty, or being really sucked into something that happens in the spiritual communities, which is this eternal healing, right? Infinite healing. You're never healed. You're never clear. There's always more courses to purchase. There's always more gurus to learn from. There's just this, you know, you're basically, it's like kind of like a sinkhole, right? And you can't get yourself out of it. And then there's also the trap within the spiritual communities of the materialism, the spiritual materialism, where it's kind of the secret, right? Everything behind that of the manifestation, but it's manifesting from a material, selfish way. It's not actually, is it part of an attack on the spiritual consciousness, if you will, if, you know, you want to go deeper, but it is trying to divert spiritual seekers, people that are trying to get onto a spiritual path, and having them take a left turn into materialism, right? Under the guise of being spiritual, under the guise of having found a community of like-minded souls. But really, we're just trying to make money. We're trying to manifest the body that we want, the car that we want. You know, we need these gadgets, we need these crystals, we need this, you know, we need all these things to be the spiritual, you know, person, right? And it's kind of an entrapment, because it does put you into one of these paths, right? It does suck you into this eighth sphere, which is this not being able to truly ascend, not being able to decide where you go next, but being constantly stuck in the karmic loop of reincarnating and losing all memory of the soul. So what this ascension path is, what this time is now, is retaining the remembrance, retaining every memory of the soul. And the twin flames come to help one another first awaken each other, to first detach ourselves from the not self, to detach ourselves from the pain and suffering of the past lives, to remember the past lives, to remember one another in the energy that we are the same soul, that we are the same. That's why you feel that comfort. That's why you feel that at home quality. It's why you cannot escape this person. It's why you can run across the entire globe. You can go out into the cosmos. You could spend years and years trying to run away from this connection, and it's always right there with you where you are. It's never gone. And so for those on this path, this twin flame path at this time, that haven't quite been able to escape from some of these traps I've discussed, and they've stayed stuck in why me, the suffering, the victimhood, which is all around the relationship, right? It's when you stay focused on the relationship, and that's kind of the ego's way of getting us to not have that sort of dark night of the soul going through the transmutation of the ego. It's still staying attached to the ego. And that's, it's a trick. It's a tricky, our egos are very sly. And their goal is to keep us feeling safe. That's really what it is, to feel safe. So we want to hold on to it. So we hold on to the person, or we reject the person and pretend that the person means nothing to us. And we can go a while lying to ourselves about that. But again, those twins haven't transcended the path of, I almost want to say karma, because they're still stuck in that loop. But once we really awaken to this idea, this concept that we are one of the whole, we are part of the whole, we are all one. So we are here with this great purpose and mission. And no, it's not romantic union and connection. That's like the cherry on top. It is to carve out an ascension path for the community, the collective, the society around us. We are like the fail-safe. We are like the divine's fail-safe program. And the reason I brought up the mystery schools, other than describing the different sort of entrapments that we can get caught in when we are embodied on this plane, is the mystery schools were very concerned about this period in time. Some of the mystics that we're able to see, from the late 1800s, even on, there's some incredible, I would look at Casey, the Casey works are incredible. Steiner, these are incredible mystery school mystics, and they all prophesized about this period of time. They saw what we were going to be experiencing and the entrapments and the potential danger of this harmonic presence, of the scientific materialism, of all of this. This was all forecasted. And so they did what they could. And we see this playing out on all levels of the world stage, if you will, in the political atmosphere, in the scientific atmosphere, in the social atmosphere. You can see this fractalizing sort of energy that there is a battle, there's a spiritual war happening, and it's all on consciousness. The war is about consciousness. That's why it is a spiritual war, and it is multidimensional. It is occurring not just in this plane. And when we're able to look at time in a more whole way, where we recognize that time is not this linear thing, we can step into the higher perspective in the multidimensionality of what we're experiencing. And that's why there were people that were able to kind of forecast and see what was happening. And it's why the whole seeding of humanity at the beginning, and seeding starseeds coming in to kind of seed consciousness and to help uplift and move Earth and humans. And the same thing when we talk about the ascension path that Yeshua laid out so beautifully for us, seeding this time that the twin flames would be coming in now. We're just carrying the torch. But we're like the secret weapon, and that's by design. We were meant to be in disguise. I used to get kind of frustrated at the misconception around twin flames and how people would get it so wrong, right? Especially with its rise in popularity. And yes, there was sort of a programming attack on consciousness going on there. There was definitely, that was present, and I could sense that, and I'm very sensitive to that. But at the same time, it was spirit protecting us. It was spirit keeping us as this sort of like secret weapon to this ascension freedom path. Because it was for the best benefit of the collective to not know the truth of what we are and what we are doing, because then nobody would suspect how much impact we would have and how much impact we would make. There were few that do, some do. But even within my own study of these mystery schools, there are some, like Elizabeth Clare Prophet, kind of had her own type of mystery school, and she was a twin flame, so she knew about twin flames and was kind of talking about it. But there wasn't much attention in terms of the spiritual impact and the assistance that the twin flames were going to provide at this time in particular. It was more about personal individuation, personal ascension, personal healing, and that's true. But in all of my sessions with you and working with clients and meeting so many of you and communicating, I've come to this conclusion that it's so much bigger than that. And that us being kind of protected under misinformation, protected under, people are sleeping on us essentially, and that's okay. And that's part of the sort of divine plan, is that we're this tiny collective in the grand scheme, a small collective, and many doubt us, don't think it's real, because only very, very highly skilled mystics who arguably perhaps are twin flames themselves, even if they're not on that path in this incarnation, and twin flames are the only ones that can understand what it is, right? Nobody else can conceptualize what it is. They try, and some may be a little bit more closely attuned to it than others. And again, I would almost argue that they are twin flames, just in a different time, a different dimension somewhere. And that's why there's this resonance and this deeper understanding. But those that aren't on that path, they don't understand it. And so there's been this veil, if you will, like a protective, mysterious sort of veil around the work that we're doing. And you're doing so much work through your transmuting of your own inner demons, of your own fears, of your own entrapments, anything that you're enslaved by. And energy is so much more powerful than we give it credit for, than the collective wants you to believe. There's been a lot of campaigning and misinformation to drive the culture away from their spiritual nature, to drive the culture away from the power of energy, the power of the mystical modalities, the power of astrology, right? The power of meditation. We've only just recently started to see a resurgence of all that, but you see that it's almost falling into the spiritual materialism trap, where it's using it for service to self instead of service to collective. But there's been this real desire to keep people out of their own connection to the divine. That's what the whole church is about, right? That's what religions are about. I'm your connection to the divine. I don't want you to connect. There's a real genuine fear over those that wish to control, that when you open up your own spiritual nature and you have your own intuitive thought and understanding, and you can connect multidimensionality, you can connect to future versions of yourself, past versions of yourself, and you understand a lot of the mysteries, you're pretty powerful, and you can't be fucked with anymore. You can't be messed with. So the twins quietly going through this inner process and then having such a massive, massive impact on the culture around them. And some twins being put in positions of power, being put in positions of having eyes on them, affecting the culture in a specific way, right? Having enough people. And again, it's not so much what a twin says or what they do, it's who they be. And it is the codes and the energies that they transmit, that they put out. That's what's important. And that's what's being felt by the collective. And the collective, a healing process, usually we do have that rejection. We do go through that, the cognitive dissonance where we have to reject an idea. So the reaction that a lot of twin flames get, at least initially, is usually negative. It's not usually positive. There's envy, there's jealousy, there's just that feeling where you're really annoyed and you don't know why. You're like, oh, that person just bugs me and I don't know why, right? That is a more immature soul experience. When we are triggered by something, it's because there's something within us that it is reflecting that we have not healed. And the pattern of that process is to put it onto that person, to project it onto that person at first. So the twins receive a lot of that, especially those that are in public eyes. And they have to go through their own sort of healing to release that fear or that doubt or that judgment of themselves. And guess what? That makes them stronger and stronger and more resilient. So no matter what is thrown, that's why I say, that's why Spirit's showing me, like, we are the secret weapon to this spiritual ascension journey. We are like the sleepers. We are the kind of the underdog that no one sees coming and then wins the race. And it's not about winning, obviously, but it is about service. It is about service. And that's the beauty, the beauty of the design of the twin flame path, is that embedded within it, when you reach inner union, when you come to that place of peace, when you are a divine, which means you've healed your masculine within and you've healed your feminine within, not only do you manifest the perfect partner for you, from a place of integrity and service versus need versus attachment versus spiritual materialism. This person looks good with me. I just want people to see me in this relationship. You're not manifesting, from a selfish place, it's from a real place, but you also awaken to the knowing of service to the collective, moving the culture forward, paying it forward. Everything you've learned, the gifts that you've received, this is one of the great mysteries. This is one of the great differentiations of the mystery schools, where one path diverted. Back in Atlantis, this is the fall. This is the seed of the fall of Atlantis. This is what was happening. We started communicating. We started opening portals and communicating with spirits that were entrapped in a lower density, a lower dimension, and they started misleading humanity into lower and lower dimensions because of their own jealousy of humanity and their power, but also for a need for control of humanity. And if they could keep humanity and they could pull humanity back down towards their level, then they would have free reign of this dimension that they could then come and incarnate. But they can't incarnate if it's a higher realm. It's impossible for them. So this is what started happening. And the misunderstanding that occurred there was humans believing that they could bypass their spiritual journey, which is a sacrifice. A sacrifice is needed, but you cannot sacrifice someone else in place of yourself. You cannot sacrifice an object or something material. It has to be a sacrifice of the ego. That is the true initiation path. And that is the difficult thing that most don't do. So what we see is a spiritual degradation where it is, it's, I want to bring up like a celebrity, and I don't mean this in like a mean way. This is truly not me coming from a judgment, but I just want to give an example. They want me to give an example. You look at somebody like Zuckerberg, okay? And I'm not super familiar with this guy, but of course I've seen him out, I know the Facebook, all of that. But you look at this person, just his energy, his aura, if you see him in a photo, or if you've ever seen him in an interview, this isn't a particularly enlightened person. This isn't a person that has this depth and maturity and aura about them, even if you don't read auras, but they don't have an energy that is inspiring, right? I think some people get a little bit inspired by the amount of money he makes, but when you know what goes behind that, the mechanics, this is not a happy person. This is not a fulfilled person. This is not, if you look at the potential for humanity and where we can go, we would never hold our Bill Gateses and our Zuckerbergs and, any of these people at that level. We would never look at them and be like, wow. You would never be like, oh my God, I just loved getting to know that guy at that dinner party. Wow, what inspiring conversation or whatever, right? This person, he just, even in the way that he carries himself and speaks, something's missing. And it's because he has, I can only assume, I don't know for sure, but the feeling I get is he is a part of this track of people that have believed in this misconception and this lie, that you can bypass the spiritual for the scientific, that you can outsmart God, that you can do it better. And this breeds and births things like the whole Nazi epidemic. This breeds the eugenics. This breeds this idea that I know better and I know how to fix things. And, at the end of the day, these schools of thought do believe they're doing the right thing. That's the interesting thing. That's the thing that I think some people have a really hard time with when we talk about ethics, is like both sides believe they're doing the right thing. And they just go about it in very different ways. But the problem is the lack of the spiritual connection. It is, and it's not to say that these groups are not using spiritual tools. They absolutely are. They don't want you to know they are because they don't want you to use the tools and do it much better because you haven't degraded your humanity so low, right? But they are using these tools, and they're using initiations, they're using the mystery school knowledge, they're using things like sacrifice, they're using all of these things, but they're bypassing it with their technology, right? And they're believing that technology is the God, and that is that harmonic impulse, okay? But I digress. See, I had no idea where spirit wanted me to go. This whole idea brings us back to this knowing that when we truly, truly purify and purge all that was never ours, that we carried, either as part of our mission and our sacrifice to transmute for the collective, as many twin flames do, or just as our ancestral line, as our karmic sort of path, our dharma. We move deeper and deeper, or higher and higher, I should say, into complete surrender. And it's where you are, whether you're conscious of this or not, allowing the divine spiritual energies to move through you and work through you. And that naturally moves you into service. It's so natural. If you don't serve, you start to break down. You're very unhappy. And that's where the twin flames fall. That is a trap I see. And it's why I've yet to meet a twin flame that is not on a service path, whether they can see it yet or not, whether they know what it is or not. It doesn't have to be complicated. The spiritual path is actually way more simple than we sometimes think. It's just not easy. Simple and easy are not the same thing. But moving into this, even just having that intention, I wish to serve. I wish to free humanity. I wish to help the culture move forward into freedom, into sovereignty. This peace that I've cultivated, I wish to gift this to others. I wish to help others. I know I can't do it for them. But just by me being here embodied with this consciousness, with these codes, and walking the path I am, that's how powerful energy is. You are assisting those that have been entrapped in this eighth sphere. You are assisting those that have been entrapped, people who think Earth is like a slave planet. You are assisting these people free themselves from this consciousness, freeing themselves from this story. You are seeding humanity. Literally, some of us as twin flames who are meant to be divine parents to very, very high dimensional starseed beings that are seeding Earth at this time, that are coming in at this time. This is only the beginning. But the twins are this sort of secret weapon. And I don't like the word weapon, but it's just what they keep giving me. Not that anything wrong with weapons. I don't know. You get what I'm saying. It is a war after all. So I guess the language is appropriate. So for twins, there's this depth and this importance to our journey. And we only awaken to it when we're ready. We only become grounded in that when we're ready to hold that energy, when we're ready to do that work and to step on that mission. And there's so much healing of ourselves that's required before we can do that. But surrender is the access point, the surrender. And sometimes you're asked to go through the fire. You're asked to go through hell, the darkness. That is transcending the eighth sphere. It's very simple when you think of it this way. It's like the longer that you let the boogeyman in your closet or under your bed freak you out without looking at it or facing it, the bigger it gets, the stronger it gets, right? And our energy is so powerful. So we create these monsters and these boogeymen. But when we face it, when we look at it, when we give it our presence, we move through it. And we help and assist others do the same. That is why we're here. So even if you're not actively in the physical world, assisting, healing, coaching, guiding other souls, please know that when you heal and you awaken, when you heal yourself, you heal the world. You are healing others. You are laying the groundwork and the path, right? The whole crucifixion story, the whole sacrifice, which, by the way, Yeshua has not been the first soul to go through this. It's just the most popular story that we know today. But there have been many souls that have walked a path like this, as you are now. And that might be controversial. People don't like when you mess with their version of Jesus, but it's true, right? So we are walking this path. We are sacrificing ourselves for the collective, for others. And when we connect into that, I don't want to say things get easier, but they get less heavy. I don't know. That's what they're giving me. They get less heavy. It's like that feeling of like, oh, like chugging through mud, like just, or snow, how hard it can be to walk in snow. You go a mile in snow and you feel like it's a lot. But it does, there is some sort of alchemical process that occurs that shifts everything. And then we're able to see things more clearly. And we're able to then go get the assistance, the guidance, and the help that we need in whatever area we're struggling with. Because no one said it was going to be easy. There are things that we're going to get stuck on. And for many of us, we can't even see what it is because it's past life stuff, right? That density of the past life, the fears, we don't even know why we're afraid. And spirit will guide you when you are actively setting those intentions and asking to be led. One of the mantras I started using prior actually to my twin flame activation was, God, please use me. God, please use me. And it's funny because I had such a visceral reaction to that mantra when they gave it to me, when they were like, work with this. I was like, that sounds abusive. That just doesn't sound good. Like, I was like, I don't like that. But it was in that like visceral reaction where I also felt the depth of it and the profound energy of it. And it was beautiful at the same time because it speaks to the sacrifice. And it's that sacrifice, that very sacrifice that the human ego tries to bypass over and over and over again. And then we live and we create the world that we're in today. It's just a lot of egos. It's just a lot of egos, misguided egos, desperately, desperately clinging to their sense of control. But the irony is when you release control, you feel so much more powerful than you ever did when you were trying to hold on to control. The illusions of control are what mess you up in every avenue, right? As humans, it's what messes us up in every avenue. The illusion of control. When we acknowledge that we actually have very little control, we ironically feel like more in control. That's a spiritual paradox for you right there. Okay, I don't know how long I've been going, but clearly they had a lot of messages they wanted to get through. What I am going to do though, because these are really, really big concepts. They're really big. And I was guided to share this here. This is usually the content that I reserve for the Patreon community. And then some, there's lots of content in there that we go into human design and twin flames and healing and all kinds of stuff. But my whole inner study around the big picture, the big picture is what I'm so inspired by at this time. So naturally, it's what Spirit is giving me downloads on and wanting to share with you all. So if you have questions about some of this, I would love to answer them. So please let me know. But that being said, what I am going to do is I'm going to do an extended reading because I know I didn't get to cards here and I had every intention to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an extended reading around a lot of these downloads that Spirit just gave as I'm channeling them. Okay, great, Spirit. Thank you for sharing. What do you want us to know about it in terms of our own personal twin flame journeys? And because I protect the twin flame connections, I protect your connection, I protect my own connection through kind of a veil of secrecy. That's how we can do it. I do reserve all of those sort of readings for that Patreon community. So I will go into kind of what we all want to hear, like what's going on with the feminine, what's going on with the masculine, what's going in relation to kind of what we just channeled here. But to keep this video time-wise, what is time? It's an illusion. But to make it bite-sizable, since that was a lot I just laid on you, I am going to end it here. But if you are interested in that extended and other extendeds that I do, that is that first tier of my Patreon community. And then you can take a look while you're there at the other content for the higher tiers. And I'm sending you all so much love. I'm just so grateful. I'm just so grateful to be on this journey, to be sharing this path. And if we didn't have things like YouTube, if we didn't have the internet, how much more isolating it would feel. And so just to feel you in the energetic, like higher dimensions, those of you that are walking this path and that you are walking it with integrity, you are walking it in this place of humility and surrendering and loving. I just feel so grateful to be a part of this and to be able to channel this for you and to support others so you do feel less alone. So thank you so much for being here. Subscribe. There's going to be lots of content like this that really helps my channel. It helps more people see it and receive the content. YouTube has all these things, so the likes and comments and shares and subscribes is just what gets the videos more seen. And of course, there is this veil of protection and secrecy around some of us out there doing this work, and we trust that that is, for a purpose, but at the same time, it really does help me out a lot. So very, very grateful. I'm sending you all lots of love. And if you want deeper support, you can always book a session with me. That information will be in the description box, a link to my Calendly, and we can connect about your own personal journey. All right, lots of love.